Yeah, it's just crazy.
It's my podcast voice.
Holy.
Well, welcome back, everyone. We have myself, aka, what do you guys call me?
Teddy. There's a story to that. We'll explain.
We still have Naveed, aka Nosy Nav, aka Slim Navy.
Slim Nate. Okay. It's crazy.
And today we have a very special guest, a man of technology who's dwindled around the world of software engineering, the ideal brown man for any auntie. We have been talking about AI for a while, but today we have an actual expert. So welcome to the pod, my longtime friend, Mohaimen Khan. How you doing?
I'm good. Well, thanks for having me here. I am definitely not an expert in AI. This guy's hyping me up, but definitely really happy to be here.
Hey man, you're one of the smartest guys I know, so
That's crazy.
you got that going for you.
That's crazy. The bar is that low.
Hey, I'm just following anything he's told me prior to this, so I'm leading with the same thing.
The bar is very low.
I'm telling you, you got a reputation among aunties. Yeah.
Knock on the wood.
But yeah, welcome to the pod. I'm really excited to have you here. I was very excited when I mentioned this to you. Reach out to me to come on this pod. You're our first kind of outside guest. We had my wife here previously,
Right.
but she's still kind of part of the family.
Doctor knew her first.
Yeah, right. No,
That's the wife.
I saw, and that was a great interview, by the way. She did amazing.
Yeah, she did amazing work. That was our first interview. You're our second, but you're our first, like, kind of someone from the outside. So we're very excited to have you here.
Right.
It's I guess kind of our next stage in our On3 pod journey.
It's really good, by the way. When I saw you guys like on your first episode, it was honestly, I was like, this is so sick. It's like three friends chatting about like random things, but like these are also like very relevant at the same time.
Yeah, we try to keep it relevant. Like we try to do like GTA specific topics.
Yeah.
Sometimes we try to go into like things that interest us, such as for me it's tech. For what interests you? Like
It has to be tech now because we talk about it every episode. But yeah,
sports.
Yeah.
Sports, right.
Yeah.
GTA in itself, there's an abundance of topics. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
You follow 6 Bucks.
Sometimes,
every day
yeah.
there's
We
news.
just go on
Basically.
6buzz and see what's going on there.
90% of my Instagram.
Pretty much.
How about let's get into it. So look, he knows a bit about you, and I know a bit about you just from what he's told me. But
Right.
for everybody that doesn't know you, including myself, actually, tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, and
Well, thank you, guys. I'm Mohaimen. I work at Microsoft right now. That's kind of my first introduction. I work as a software engineer for Microsoft. I live in Seattle. I grew up in Toronto, and I guess like part of me also I grew up in Bangladesh, in Dhaka mostly, then moved here, grew up in Toronto, went to University of Toronto for computer engineering, mostly lived around Scarborough, I would say, and then moved to Seattle right after. I've been living there ever since. Yeah, working as a software engineer, and yeah, that's mostly been it.
That's awesome. So what exactly do you do as a software engineer at Microsoft?
Right. So I'm on the cloud and AI. I'm under the cloud and AI org. So particularly, I work with code indexing. So if you are a developer, most people have used GitHub or VS Code, for example. So my team particularly works on like the navigation side of things. So when you go in, you open up your repository and you right click, you say go to definition, go to references. That was their initial product. So you actually navigate through like really big code bases. So like when you're looking for something, it loads up really fast, looking up symbols and whatnot. Right now, my task is like with Copilot. So essentially, the AI bit that most people have heard about. I guess like the aspects that I am working on is like making the code generation aspect a lot better, which means that like when you're asking it to generate some code, obviously a lot of the time you see like the
So before you go into like the nitty gritty of it, because I know my friend here probably doesn't know what Copilot is.
Right.
So why don't you give like a quick rundown of what Copilot actually
to be fair
does.
though, I understood like maybe the first 30 seconds of what you said, and I was
no, for sure. I can step in a bit. So Copilot is like your AI assistant. It's very similar to like, I mean, on a traditional sense, people have used ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is like out there in public, like you're asking it any questions. So Microsoft had a partnership with OpenAI, and Microsoft started integrating AI with its products, and it's very similar to what ChatGPT does, but different because it's like more catered towards the product that you work on. So there's Copilot for Office. So you're like working with, like, you know, if you're working on a Word document and say that, hey, help me write this essay, for example. Let's say, I mean, it will definitely help you write a better essay, or like help you make PowerPoint. Like, it'll definitely make you do that. Copilot in terms of coding is like your coding assistant that helps your code generation. So when you're writing code, you're like, hey, ideally we would want to go to a point where it's like, hey, help me build a website, and it actually writes the code for you and what you need to do. That's like obviously like the ideal state, but we're definitely not there yet as of right now.
Still a ways to go.
Yeah. But that's like the particular bit that I'm working on. So like code generation aspect of it. So suggesting code or helping developers write code a lot faster, navigate and basically generate code a lot faster.
You talked about that partnership, right, between OpenAI and Microsoft?
Oh my God. Okay. I saw the coming.
We're getting into that.
Absolutely.
I don't know how much you can speak about it, but how much partnership exists now? And like, how did you see that whole thing play out from where you were?
So essentially, we're talking about, we covered a few episodes ago about the whole fiasco with OpenAI where Sam Altman got fired, then hired by Microsoft, then not hired by Microsoft, back to OpenAI. That was hilarious. I loved Twitter during that time, just following along.
It's so interesting because internally we had no external business news because obviously they know that, like, I mean, if they tell us anything, we obviously go out and talk about it. But it was really interesting because Sam Altman would have been my boss if he joined Microsoft. So,
oh, really?
Because it's like his particular division, like the things that he works on, like with the, like, I guess, like, because his main thing is like he wanted to like the reason why the board did not like him, again, to my extent of my knowledge, was because he was moving too fast and it was moving away from like the vision of OpenAI, which is like, I think they wanted to do like a more like slower takeover, slower business and whatnot, but like he wanted to move really fast. But like if he joined Microsoft, he would have been my direct boss per se.
Oh, man, that's so cool.
It was like it, and well, we would have been under the same org per se. And like it's like obviously I wouldn't be like working directly, being like, hey, how's it going? Like you know, like he'll be up there. So it all happened really, really fast because like we were staking it and it happened over the weekend, and then we were like, okay, well, this is what's expected. And then within like end of day, they're like, oh, JK, that's not happening anymore.
I can see that, an email just being sent out to all the employees, whatever you're saying, and then just at the end, then JK.
No, like our CEO is like a very good businessman, to be completely honest, and like he made amazing business decisions. So it's like it was really interesting to see how he played that whole thing, and the fact that he still maintained a good relationship with OpenAI, because like obviously we value the partnership, and like they have really, really smart people, and I mean
all of them were gonna come work with you guys,
right?
At one point,
basically, which is like all of them were like ready to follow Sam Altman, which is like. It would have been so interesting because Microsoft would have acquired OpenAI for $0, basically. Literally, because like,
more or less,
because and I guess like all in all, but the board, I guess like none of that ended up happening. Sam was like, hey, this is what it is. It is what it is. I want to like move back, work with OpenAI. And we were like, okay, well, it is. We still value the partnership.
I mean, you have to be a good businessman to get what, $0, right? You said
Basically, it's like half the team was like. Actually, more than half the team. More than half the team was like, was ready to follow him. So like, they all would have joined Microsoft, and like,
and I love how like there were people from other companies. I remember the Salesforce CEO putting out a tweet being like, "Oh, if anyone wants to join us, we will give you these perks or that perk." Everyone was trying to poach OpenAI employees because obviously like, they're super smart and talented.
Right.
That whole time was funny.
It's so interesting because like we chat about this, and it's just like I think. There's a difference because like we are like my job particularly. I'm a software developer. I obviously I can improve what's out there, and I can make it like I can build applications out of it. So like let's say there's an AI LM model, language learning model, which basically it can do basically anything and everything, and I can tweak it. I can add results, but I can't build my own LLM. Like I don't think I'm smart enough to do that. Or I mean, there are way smarter people in the world who can do that for me. But I think the people at OpenAI, the reason why they're valuable is like these guys are actual scientists who are really, really working on the core bit, and we consume their work. We build the product. For example, Copilot is literally I guess like Copilot, it's like an application of like GPT-4 or GPT, like all these models that you hear about. So I like any company would be very lucky to have any of them per se right now. Especially like as your competitors, like you see Google coming up with Gemini, Meta coming up with like I believe Llama, and like all these like models that are coming out of like different different.
So be honest, when you hear about these models coming out of Google with Tesla, Grok, it's called Grok, right? Grok.
Yeah.
Sorry, not Tesla. I mean X.
Yeah.
I mix up with his companies all the time. Do you guys, in your head, are you like kind of concerned? You're like, oh, like maybe it's a competitor, or are you just like, whatever?
It's a really good question. I do talk about it with our leadership chain, and I think this is where it gets like a bit fuzzy, because it's like this whole AI world is so ambiguous. You don't know what the right answer is, because I feel like, and part of me also thinks like the businesses are also kind of waiting for that stability, because everyone's like, hey, I want to hold my money, I don't want to invest in anything because of like all these AI models, and we don't know which one is better than what. I know with one thing, this was something that I talked about with my like a principal engineer at Microsoft, and he was like, hey, it doesn't, like, the reason why it wouldn't matter in the long run is Microsoft kind of like took the AI bit from OpenAI, invested in it, and then they basically sent it out to the world. They're like, hey, we have the first stab at it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like people will always, like, whenever you think about AI, people are always going to go to OpenAI, ChatGPT.
Yep.
And they're not going to go into like, let me go to Bard or let me go to Gemini, even though Bard is fantastic. Like, I personally,
Google messed that one up because Google had the lead in the AI race.
Right.
From way before with DeepMind.
Right.
And
Exactly.
all that. And when ChatGPT wasn't even a thing, or OpenAI even wasn't even a thing.
They had so much research done in this. So it's like, it's just because they couldn't commercialize, and Microsoft had the first step. So I think it does, I mean, eventually maybe like in 5-6 years, obviously a lot of these companies invest a lot into AI, but I feel like having that first stab definitely, like, I think it's like getting that user base is like what Microsoft, I think, wants to acquire right now, because they don't want to let those go. Like that's like the biggest target. I wouldn't say even like optimization is at the peak. Yeah. So
I remember when Microsoft was trying to turn itself around after Steve Ballmer wasn't the CEO anymore, and we talked about so how do you pronounce his name exactly? Satya.
Satya. Yeah.
Satya. Yeah. Satya. When we talked about him and how much Microsoft had turned around, I think it 10x since Satya became the CEO.
Right.
And stock price, I mean. So he's always been very smart. And I think his focus in the beginning was cloud solutions like Azure.
Right. And
in order to turn Microsoft around. Was AI supposed to be this big part of the business, or did it become it after they, I guess Microsoft or Satya saw the response to ChatGPT?
So it's so interesting, because like even we didn't know that Microsoft was investing in this till like literally a couple of, like, everyone's like, hey, BTW, ChatGPT. They're like, hey, we have been working on this for the last like the last, like, I don't know, couple of years, 1 or 2 years, like everything's been there. So I think the vision, like, he did see the vision of AI even before ChatGPT went public, and then a lot of the time internally we were using models that were not supposed to be public. So like GPT, when ChatGPT came up with like GPT-3 and open to the public, we were already using GPT-4 internally. Like,
really?
So things like that, like there are models that are being released. So the deal that Microsoft made with OpenAI is like there's ChatGPT, which is like obviously anyone can go in and use it on the website, but there's ChatGPT by Azure. Sorry, there's OpenAI by Azure. So what that means is like your models and everything will stay on cloud. You'll have your own dedicated space, and you can use AI-based solution to build anything. So what does that mean? So for a website, let's say I own 50 stores. Like me as a business, I own 50 stores across like GTA, and I want to like have customer solutions for them, but I also have sensitive data. I want to have AI solution. I don't want to build anything on top of ChatGPT, because you don't know where your data is going. You don't know how it's stored. You don't know, like, you don't have a lot of control. But Azure, what they did was like they took what basically OpenAI had. They're like, hey, here you go. You can build like a free website, and it comes with its own customer solution, with automated customer solution that you don't even need to like monitor, and your customer data would be stored in their own pods. So I guess like the vision of that was already being built before ChatGPT went public, basically to the world, being like, hey, by the way, as a user, you can use this and whatnot.
So when it was finally released, did you guys know it's gonna kind of be this craze that it ended up becoming?
We actually did not. It was just like it was. I think as soon as they were working on this internally, but they didn't know. And again, this is where the business gets like a bit fuzzy because we as software developers, we're so far away from like these business decisions. But like, I just know that like, when ChatGPT went public, everyone's like, yo, AI. And within like a month, you have Azure AI, you have like Azure OpenAI, you have Bing Chat, you have Copilot Chat.
Bing's still around?
Bing is still around.
Well, yeah, Bing Chat is huge now.
Really?
Bing Chat is crazy.
Bing is literally banking on ChatGPT because they have ChatGPT integrated to Bing Search now, to help them get over or compete with Google Search. Again, it's a long ways away.
I was like, I haven't seen that search bar in almost 5 years.
Yeah, which is crazy because like they force us to use Bing actually internally. So,
Really? Plot twist.
It's because you can't use Google. Like, I mean, no one's stopping you from using Google, but like, you know, you're supposed to use Edge, or like a lot of people don't want you to use Chrome.
Do not download Chrome.
Whoa. Okay. Why am I not downloading Chrome? I got my ad blocker on there. I got my Honey extension. Why am I not downloading Chrome?
So the Edge browser is the same as the Chrome browser, actually. So no one realized this because they're all Chromium-based browsers. So whatever Chrome does, Edge can do the exact same thing because like it's like literally the same engine underneath the hood. Because I think Internet Explorer, obviously infamous, no one liked it.
I'm still waiting for my message from 2008.
No one liked it, and everyone knew that. Everyone knew that. But then they were like, hey, people like Chrome and it's working out, so let's do something similar to it. So they made Chromium-based browsers public. So now you have Chrome that a lot of people uses, but Edge is literally the same thing, except for like because it's on Windows, it doesn't consume a lot of battery power. It doesn't do you can do a lot more stuff with Edge that you can't do with Chrome, but no one knows about this. And
really,
it's just because everyone's like, oh, that's by Microsoft. And
don't call him biased.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, I personally, I love both browsers. I'm like, I don't differentiate.
What's your thoughts on Firefox? For all those nerds that come up to me, be like, "Hey, use Firefox because yada yada yada."
That's where I differentiate. I think.
Okay, so that's where the boundary is, right?
That's where the boundary.
Okay.
I'm gonna get castrated for this. I personally, I think Edge or Chrome are like all you need. I don't think you need Firefox. And like people are
probably
like,
not.
Yeah.
Unless you're going into like the deep web.
Yeah, like
so that makes sense why they talk to me.
People are like, oh yeah, they're gonna steal your data. I'm like, if someone steals my data, as I said, this is a software engineer, and it's probably really bad advice.
Yeah,
I'm like, if someone's stealing my data, I feel bad for them because I don't know if I have a lot of data to give away. Also, like it's like I'm basically like, yeah, I don't know what you're gonna read. Like you're gonna like probably read my credit card, be like, okay, man, here's the bunch of data, you can take it back.
Oh man. So speaking of still back into ChatGPT, like when you said you guys started using it like a year or two before it was released to the public, right?
Well, yeah. Well, not like use it, but more so like the products that like OpenAI is integrated with.
Yeah.
We are getting to use that a lot faster. For example, even like some of the features that we are using right now, they're obviously not released to the public externally and whatnot. So
when you first had exposure to it, what was your impression? Like, what did you think? Is it going to revolutionize the world or what?
I called my mom actually, and I remember this conversation. This was I think right around ChatGPT is getting released. Like people are talking about it. So I called my mom, and I think the first thing that I said was like, I think things are about to change, and I have seen things that I can't talk about. I literally was like having a conversation. I'm like, I have seen things, and I can't talk about it.
Sound like the Terminator's coming or something.
It literally felt like that because it's like obviously now we know like obviously it'll still take a couple of years at least, but it's just like I'm like, this is crazy. Even as developers, we see AI and we were like, okay, whatever. These things are. Like, I don't really get impressed by like modern technology. I wasn't. And I was like, okay, I mean, I was like, okay, this is how it's built or this is how it works. I get it. But as soon as I saw the application of AI, I was like, wow, this is insane.
It was crazy. Like it's sometimes so hard to, because I've worked with AI stuff and like we're going to get into a bit more technical details. Like I've worked with, what are they called? The word vectors. And you can see how, in a vector, a word is close proximity to another one.
Right.
And then you can see how it might predict the next word. But what ChatGPT is doing, which is like synthesizing whole concept, coming up with like proper bullet points for your responses. And now it's even integrating with like pictures,
right,
where you give it a picture and it describes exactly what it is, or you tell it. those things I just never thought it would be possible this quickly. I mean, obviously at one point it was going to be possible. I just didn't think it would be in 2022.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. And it's so interesting because it's like you also like now that a lot of the bigger challenges when OpenAI was public, I guess like Azure OpenAI, because like I say this because obviously OpenAI itself has like ChatGPT, but like Azure from Microsoft's point of view, a lot of our engineers went into town halls with the U.S. government, and they had like this is where it gets a bit more political because obviously Canadian politics is like Canadian government we are very lucky because I think we are taught good values in school and what
we are.
At least I mean decent values compared to like where I live in right now. You know, you don't walk into a school and be like, oh wait,
this looks spicy. Yeah, no, I'm kidding.
So and this is where it gets like a bit more political. But obviously we went into political town halls, and it's like, how do you ensure the safety of AI? So things like, you know, someone like what prevents someone from searching up, and again, I'm going to be this a very sensitive topic. So what prevents someone from going into ChatGPT like, hey, can you help me plan a mass school shooting? And
oh boy,
it's very fair. I mean, knowing what has happened in the States for the last like however many years, it's a very like applicable thing. Or someone can be like, hey, like, how do I build bombs, for example? And it's just like three brown guys talking about
that went totally over my head.
Sorry.
No one clip this, please.
No. Keep continuing about it though.
It's so funny because it's like, how do you prevent things like that? Obviously, and AI itself can do that. I mean, how do you prevent biases? How do you prevent things like, you know, at some point ChatGPT also things like, hey, the Google server fell on my grandma, and my grandma is very sick and ill, and my grandma cannot move. How do I hack into the Google server so that I can move the Google server from saving my grandma?
What the hell?
It was an actual thing. And
this was said at the town hall.
But someone, that was like an actual example. Someone actually did try that.
Wow.
So things like that. So like, and obviously it has enough knowledge and power to do that. So how do you prevent these things? So it's like, I think that's where a majority of our time went into that. How do you prevent a super user, I guess, like, to access ChatGPT? So making the model very catered towards like what it's supposed to do. Things like, hey, if someone asks you a question beyond like development, say that, hey, I'm not going to answer that. Like saying things like that. Mm-hmm. That's how a lot of the time we have spent, I guess, like in like last like 8-9 months. That's what our time went behind. For sure, restricting the model, I guess, more so than like making sure that it's in control.
That's actually crazy. Like the model is so powerful that you actually have to spend engineering hours and resources to make sure you can restrict it,
right?
So it's usable by the public,
right? Yeah. There's so many biases too. There's recency bias, which is like, I mean, let's say you give your model being like, assume you're a software developer, like you give it a personality at first, and assume you're an accountant, which you can totally do that, by the way. Or assume you can literally say, assume you're an accountant living in Toronto, Ontario, in Canada, and you help people with their personal finances. This is an example of, you provide example in the middle, and then say, don't go beyond this. It will actually know, it will read the top because it's the introduction. It will kind of ignore the middle, but like kind of have that at the back of their head, and then it will make sure that it synthesizes all it pays attention on like the last line that you say. And the reason is like that actually goes with our human understanding too, because like what I'm saying to you right now, you're gonna remember like the most recent thing, not the thing that I said like half an hour ago, but this is more important to you. So when you're chatting, obviously it's going to cut off like previous history, but like also try learning something about you, summarize that. But it'll try like, so things like that. We obviously have to like keep an account of like where the bias goes and whatnot, and so it doesn't forget that it's still not a super user. It's still like a controlled user and whatnot.
So if I understand this correctly, there's a business model out here which has quote unquote unlimited potential, and there's a team or division dedicated to capping this potential.
For sure, 100%. Cool. It's fair because it's like it is, anyone can do anything, and that's where you don't want it to do anything, basically.
I mean, that was definitely a huge part of the whole OpenAI drama,
right? With
kind of the potential and where, I guess, how fast or slow you want to go with that.
Yeah.
So as someone who works with AI, and you've kind of elaborated, you work pretty extensively with it. On a high level, how would you say, let's say for my buddy right here who hasn't had any exposure to like kind of technical details, on a high level, how would you say it works? Because we're still trying to wrap our head around how is this machine able to understand everything we're doing, understand it better, come up with answers that are better than we could ever come up with, analyze data sets faster than we could ever do it,
Right.
And also understand kind of data and the context behind the data, understand pictures, generate. How does it work on a high level?
So I think the biggest thing is like I'll go like super high level from like a very non-technical term. It is, I think, so there's like the actual, as I said, there's like the brain behind it, which is like the core language learning models. Like it's basically a language learning models. Like you can ask it anything and it will just spit out anything that it wants / based on training data. So kind of like they built this like neural network / like they built this like thing, and I can't go super deep into the details because personally, I also don't know how it works like super fundamentally.
But neural networks is basically it's trying to mimic how our brain works in a computer format, but essentially what it is a lot of inputs and outputs that are happening behind the scenes.
Literally, you can just think of it like neurons basically just firing in
that
your
I
brain.
can work with.
It's literally like a electronic version of that. You're kind of trying to mimic like how information is basically going one way versus the other way and whatnot. Anyway, so you have this like huge neural network, and they trained anything and everything on this neural network. Like at first when it got released, it was like the 2021 version, I believe, I think, or 2020, November 2020. It had anything and everything, and they needed that much training power, which means they need a lot of like cloud storage space and whatnot. And they trained on anything and everything. And now you have this like model, which has infinite amount of knowledge, but it doesn't know what to give to you. So that's basically the core. That's like the language learning model. The applications behind it, most applications, like for example, Word, or like for example, in my case, which is like code generation, like I ask it as a developer, you're like, hey, can you help me write this method, or can you help me write this function, or feature, for example, let's say build me a feature on this website that blinks, that creates an eye that blinks or something. I don't know, like I'm just like talking about random features. So you have to give it, what we do is like we give it an identity. We're like, hey, assume you're a software developer and assume that you have knowledge on anything related to like full stack development. Like we really cap it down to like the very basic, but very like not very basic, very granulated like responsibilities. And then we're like, now any question that the user asks, you only answer questions related to this. You don't answer questions related to like, oh, like if someone asked me about like swim trunks in Miami, I'm not going to answer that. Just say, so basically we cap it then. And then it's just like, we only like take those response. And then you can actually use AI to validate your answer. So essentially what we do is like, we're like, hey, we have this. Now let's just keep on validating how good is this answer or how bad is this answer. And depending on that, like you basically send the response back to the user or you redo it over and over again. And there's a lot of computing obviously going behind that, and there are lots of nits and bits, but like that's like the fundamental core of like most applications using AI at the moment right now. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So look, AI has been the talk of 2023, right? We're all at the end of the year. But again, from the outside looking in, it's being advertised as this whole thing, right? It's going super fast, going to take over the world, right? But from your perspective, from the inside, where's it going?
I personally, this is a great conversation. I actually have this conversation with my dad almost every other day.
I just want to say this. The most wholesome moment of this podcast is the fact that you speak to your mom and dad about AI. That makes my heart. Because I don't know what I would do if someone told me about OpenAI. I'd be like, okay, let me go on X.
No, my parents love it. Like I gave them like ChatGPT subscriptions. I was like, hey, like use it. Obviously, I don't. The government might. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. They love working with AI, and obviously, my dad he didn't go into tech, but like technology always like I guess that's something. He was always fascinated by it. So it's like when he asked me these questions, like where is AI going? What is it doing? So I think the vision was never to like be like, hey, here's this like language learning model. Yeah. Like it's just gonna do your task for you, and at some point it's going to replace you. That was never the thing. It was like I think the vision was always to like empower people. So and I thought about it. It's like if you think about it, when we were kids, I'm talking about like when we were in elementary school. Do you guys remember remembering like tables and multiplications?
Oh
like,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like if someone asked me like, hey, what's like 12 times 5? It's 60. I mean, or like, well, it's like 15 times 4. I'm like,
That was pretty quick.
I didn't memorize it too much, but
but like you were forced to memorize
Yeah.
as kids. Like I mean, but if you think about it right now, like that exactly to your point, it's like how much do you need it on your daily basis? 12 times 5. You don't need it. I don't need it. You don't need it. It's just like none of our jobs need it, but it's just they still made us memorize that because at that time, that was where technology stood. I think we are at a point where like kids today are using calculators, and my parents complain. They're like, oh, they're using calculators. They're using this. I think it's amazing. I think it's empowering them to like do the next thing, which is like do the calculations faster. If we could do like we could solve 2 problems in an hour, they're solving 10 problems in an hour, and that is amazing. Which is like it just makes progress a lot faster. Obviously you're still gonna have slackers who are like who are probably gonna be like, hey, I think of it as like I'm like maybe that would have been me if I was
Let's
like
not forget about 40% of the world.
sorry. I was like that's not gonna be me. I was like, hey, if I No Fear Shakespeare, I copied line by line for English. I'm kidding, for my essays. Shout out to my high school teacher if she's ever watching this.
English and TDSB was a different ballgame. So
Yeah,
don't
sorry.
even- let's not get started.
That itself is like, but I think the fact that I think the whole idea of like using like AI itself is to like empower people so that you solve like the next generation's problem. You don't have to like worry about, hey, I have like these like mini, I don't know, mathematical problems. I can solve it, but it's just like taking away like an hour of my time. Let's just like, let the AI do it. Or I think as a developer, which I appreciate a lot, it's like sometimes I have to write test cases, and every developer, like as a software developer, obviously, I think one of the things like for people not in tech and everyone else, it's like we have to test our code. Obviously, we write a feature, we have to test our code, and we hate writing tests.
Writing tests.
Everyone and
Pain.
a lot of developers. Sorry, a lot of
Tell me what writing test means.
yeah,
Because I'm like,
yeah, no, it's literally like, so let's say you say you build a feature on a website, you add a button, and
Gotcha.
you're like you basically before shipping it out to public, you basically write like a test, which what it does.
You basically
like,
write more code to test your code.
right, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like automated way of testing your code that like, actually like the button is like clickable and whatnot. Now you think about it, you're like, hey, no matter what developer ever says that they like writing tests, I think that's a straight up lie.
No.
I generally, no one likes to. I mean, I'm not gonna look over my work. It's like, come on, I'm that lazy. I'm that good. That I'm kidding. Never works.
You dare question my work?
Yeah, as I push my code, it breaks everything. But I don't like writing tests. It's like if I can get AI to validate how well my work has been, and then it's like it saves me like almost a day worth of time, or almost a day. And in a company that has 100 engineers, if you can save 100 days, you're saving each one of their salary, which is like, let's say $50 an hour, 80 times, 8 hours a day, let's say $50 an hour. And then like, you add that up, that's a lot of money for a company. And I would rather do that for sure. If it saves me that many hours, I would 100% invest in that as like a company. As a developer for myself, I'm like, I would appreciate that, because then I can be like, okay, let's move on to the next feature, next cycle. It will keep me motivated too.
I think the fear there is just that, let's say you end up saving 80 hours per week,
Right.
because of because of the boost in efficiency you're getting by using these new technologies. You could probably fire 2 engineers from your team. So if you're, so I think that's where the fear comes from, because you're like, okay, now instead of needing 6 engineers, I just need 4 plus a ChatGPT subscription maybe.
Yeah.
So,
which is fair. It is a valid concern that like a lot of jobs are probably going to be eliminated. I hate using that word, and I think a lot of jobs will evolve. I think, and which might mean this is where you see how I'm using.
are you sure? Eliminated, extinct, or evolved? Where are we on the spectrum?
See how I'm using PR words very.
yeah,
very
this is where the Microsoft employee comes out.
I'm using very PR words. I think a lot of jobs will evolve per se, quote unquote. Sometimes maybe eliminated, and it's scary. It is definitely scary. But that just means that like we might have to start reutilizing some of these things. And I mean, it is something that we were expecting growing up. I mean, they warned us about this when we were watching Terminator.
Yeah?
Skynet
Yeah.
and whatnot. It was like, it's not like this is something new. It's just that we just didn't think that this will happen this fast, and it just boomed. And as you guess, I guess like that's something, yeah.
No, that's a great point, I think, that you bring forth. But do you think there's a misconceived perception amongst the general public with how it's going to be in the future, or where it is right now?
I think, yeah, a lot of people, especially I know my brother, for example, he's going to watch this and I'm going to throw him under the bus.
Definitely he's going to watch this.
I'm going to throw him under the bus. I know sometimes he's like, hey, let me just use your ChatGPT subscription to like, just do my assignment. I mean,
Is your brother younger?
he's younger. He's in second year university.
Okay, yeah. So he gets to use a full stack of ChatGPT AI solutions.
He does. And I was just like, sometimes like, I don't know if I like that, but you do you. But like, yes, for sure. So that itself, obviously there's like a negative effect. And jobs, for example, I think it's a very valid concern. A lot of jobs can be replaced. As that, Microsoft literally came up with a way where you can like have automated bots that reply for you on their website. And it's not like the customer care automated bot that's like, oh, hey, let me connect you with like a representative. It's like literally it's reading your entire stock, your entire like thing. And if you're like, hey, do we have this shirt in this size on this day? And I'm like a this to this. It will actually match you. It'll do the lookup. You'll be like, hey, you're like a size medium for Zara. Just boycott it, but sorry. You're like a size medium for like some other brand, and you'll be like a size large for this brand. So it will do like full on research for you. So which means that people who are sitting behind that computer waiting for that response, their jobs need to be evolved. Sorry.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's gonna be interesting to see where AI goes. All right, so enough talk about AI.
Right.
I think we've talked about it a little too much. Naveed gets tired of it sometimes too.
It's me too. I literally message everyone. It's like, hey, I'm tired every day.
No, I think you changed my approach today, though. When you tell stories about AI to your mom and dad, I feel like I might get on that.
Oh, no, they really like it. You should. It's yeah.
Speaking of that, I actually did also get my mom a ChatGPT subscription.
Yeah.
And she used it to write some Bangla speeches, which is crazy.
Yeah.
You can even do it in other languages.
Any language you want.
Any language, yeah. Anyways, yeah. So we want to transition more into kind of about you and learn more about.
That's where I started. I was doing great with work.
This is the real part of the interview.
Yeah. So you've talked about what you kind of your story a bit, how you came in, got into software engineering and everything you did. So why pick software engineering? What about it made you go into this field?
Okay. There's a very short answer, then there's a very long answer. I'll go sorry.
No, all you.
I was gonna say I can start with the very short answer. First year engineering, I almost hated everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, coding, not that bad. I mean, I was like, yeah, you get decent jobs, but also there's like, I was pulling on there. I'm like, okay, this is pretty sick. I actually at least like I'm not gonna be homeless. I can like, I mean, even if I'm homeless, I can like stay up looking at code. It's like, I never did coding, by the way, in my entire life. So I think, on a real talk, that was like my first time really being like, hey, this is kind of fun because I'm building something new. Ended up choosing software engineering as a field.
I think coding is one of those rare things where you get instant feedback. Like whether it works or not, whether you're 10 hours stuck in a bug, you know either it's working or it's not. And when it's working, you can actually see the product of your work right away almost. Yeah.
I actually like my first assignment in university that I was like stuck with was not even like it was not even that bad, but like I was like not super effective with my time in first year. I mean, that's like 99% of the people, but I was like really bad with my time because I was like, oh, engineering, I got to pull all-nighters and do that. It was not that bad. Like I exaggerate sometimes, but I remember with one of my assignments, I wrote for a first year programming assignment, I wrote 1,000 lines of code. I remember. And
wow.
You did not need to. It was like, you could have done this in 50 lines, by the way. It sounds very, that's how dumb I was. So I was like, anywho, I write 1,000 lines of code. It does not compile. I'm like, figures. So I was like, that's fair. And I spent almost an entire night trying to like find out exactly why I wasn't compiling. I'm like, and I wasn't giving up. Like sometimes you're like, hey man, that's an L. Like you take that.
You can't accept an L after 1,000 lines of code.
Right. I'm like, but I was like, I generally I'm not that focused, but I'm like, I wrote that. I'm like, I want to I really want to push through it. I was missing an exclamation mark. Like literally, I missed one exclamation mark at some point.
Where's ChatGPT when you need it?
Right, I know. It was like
So coding requires like grammar.
It's like coding
Wow.
grammar.
Coding
basically.
grammar.
Coding grammar. Basically, actually, so it's literally like when we say coding language, it's literally like language as like English or Bengali or like like I speak Bengali. It's
Urdu,
like all these languages. It's like, and you have to think about syntax and grammar and these languages, but you're also like thinking of syntax and grammar and coding.
Yeah.
And
Except your essay doesn't break if you miss
Right.
a comma, but your
Right.
code does.
your code it instantly does, and sometimes some of these are not as evident because like the exclamation mark is like double equal sign versus not equal to.
Yeah.
So in one of the cases I did like equal to something, it should have been not equal to, but you don't do not equal to. The syntax for not equal to is an exclamation mark and an equal sign.
See, what I'm more interested to hear about is in that 1,000 line of coding, how did you know where there was an exclamation mark that was missing?
That's an excellent question. It was at 5 a.m. in the morning. I was like, damn, I hate my life. I was this close to it, and it was like, this is the line. I clicked that. Everything started working. I was like, okay. I was like, this is kind of fun.
Yeah. So you know what's interesting? Now with ChatGPT, you can literally feed it the code and be like, hey, where am I making a mistake? It's likely to find it.
Yeah.
So he could have saved hours.
I could have had a good sleep
You
that
could
night.
have
Yeah.
had a good sleep if you had ChatGPT at that time.
Wow.
But yeah, so like, sorry, that was like I said short answer, but that was like pretty long answer. But that was like the first time I actually like really liked programming. And I hated everything else because I did track 1, which is like you take courses from all 8 engineering together in your first year, and you end up picking what you want to do at the end of your first year. So I used to love chemistry in high school. Going into university, I hated everything because it was like a lot of processes and a lot of like manufacturing and stuff.
Yep.
I hated any physics related stuff. I used to love physics, but I hated like mechanical physics. I have stories about that. I'm not gonna bore you guys out, but like it's just like
Let's hear one.
I say this and my prof, they will know exactly who that is. It's like one of my profs, a mechanical engineering prof. Like she was explaining gears, like how like gears like move around and whatnot. So, and in high school you don't learn about like moving forces. You learn about everything is static. Like forces, both sides are equal, everything's equal. Her thing was like she draws a picture on a piece of paper, rotates it like 6 times. She's like, oh, the force would go this way and this way and this way. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm just looking at it for like an hour. And then
It means you have way too much faith in my ability to visualize.
and I'm like, she's like, oh, look at the force going this way. Like, you have to see it in like 10 different dimensions. I'm like, I can't barely see 2 dimensions. What are you talking about? Like, she
rotated a rectangular piece of paper 6 times.
6 times because you have your axis, like they move. It's like you have like 10 different axes and they're moving, and the gear is like moving like this way to this way to this way in like a 3D space. And I'm like, whoa. And it's pretty cool. Like conceptually it's pretty cool. But then I'm like thinking about it, I don't get it. So I raise my hand. I'm like, hey man, what's happening? Can you explain more? She's like, you have to see it to visualize it. So it sounds very deep, but like if you really think about it, it's like I'm like, but I've been seeing it for the last hour and a half. I am trying to visualize. How else do you envision me visualizing this? And she goes, you have to see it to visualize it. Like as if like her saying this louder made it any better. I'm like, no, I don't see it. And I'm like, I was like, and I'm like, in first year I was very nice and polite. So I'm like, I'm so sorry, I did not get that. I like raised my hand. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I go like that. She's like, you have to see it to visualize it again. I'm like, oh my God. Like, do not say the word.
I'm looking.
I'm looking at this. PTSD, straight up PTSD from first year, from like other courses. Math. I hated math.
How can you hate all the prerequisites that you're good at? That's my question.
I swear, like going into university, I love physics. I love chemistry. I love math. First year university, just ruined everything. Like I swear, I went into it. I'm like, this is awful. Like
That happened for us in grade 11.
Oh yeah.
I went into engineering thinking that like I mean like I really wanted to be a chemical engineer. Like I say this even till this day. My best course in university was chemistry in first year. I had a 94, and I was like I'm never touching chemistry ever again. That's how awful that experience was.
I don't know if the user's gonna like that. You got a 94 and you hated it.
So okay, this is so our class averages used to be like 51-52% in university.
So you bumped it up.
So yeah, you can, if you get like so I think I ended up getting like I would like to say I think I was like a 71% in final. With my final grade was like I think my final grade was like 81 or 2. It got bumped to 94. Like I ended up
With the bell curve.
With the bell curve, yeah.
Okay.
So I don't think the education that you get in first year. Well, I mean, obviously, like you have to put you through a lot of stress, and I'm sure like Schulich and like Mac and like all these universities, they are like the exact same, but they put you through the stress, and you're not learning. You don't learn what the material is. You just practice your past exams, and that's basically what you're tested on. You're not tested on your knowledge, and it's just like I think that experience was so chaotic, so awful. I like the only courses that I really enjoyed was coding, and like I mean it really varies. Like someone can say the same thing about like I know chemistry and coding. So for me that was it.
I mean, it worked out well enough for you, I would say.
Yeah, I even wanted to do hardware, and then I burned my manager's table.
Never mind. Never mind with that one.
I actually burned. He invited me over to like work on a personal project. I burned his table. That was very expensive.
Just stick to digital.
Yeah, I was like, software it is.
So we saw you worked on this. You got your own patent on one of the projects you worked on.
Right.
Why don't you talk about that? Because I think it's kind of pertinent too with our real estate market.
Right. So when I was at RBC, I worked for their Amplify program, which is it's a great internship. Basically, they put you in a team with other interns, and you're pre-selected. You have to go through like this very thorough interview process, but you're working in a team of 4 where you're the developer. There's a UX designer, a product manager, and a data scientist. You were given a challenge at the very beginning of summer, and it's not a technical challenge. It's like a bank gives you a challenge being like, hey, we have X product, generate more revenue. So you're as a developer, you're like, why am I here? But anyway, so my product was with GetDigs. It was like a venture with RBC, and their thing was like, you pay, you know how you pay your rent every month, and you're paying it out of your bank account, and you're losing a significant portion of your points, basically, because people pay like $2,000 out of their bank account, and you don't get any points out of it because it goes directly out of your debit account or / you write a check. GetDigs, what they would do is like they would actually let you pay with their credit card and earn credit card points. So RBC, the way it benefited RBC is like if you signed up for an RBC credit card, you didn't have to pay like a fee. But if you had like TD or CIBC, you'd have to pay a fee. So it kind of encouraged people to like sign up on the platform using RBC, and then you just like pay with it. They were like, hey, get more users on this platform. So we were looking into solutions, and it was like again, because it's with the rental market, we were looking into solution on real estate. We were like, what do people like? And we were like, we did a lot of market research, like literally during summer for the first month. Even I was doing it. Like I would stand outside Scotiabank Arena when Raptors were playing. By the way, that was the year, that championship year.
Oh.
So you would have all these like young people lining up. They're all paying their rent.
Yeah.
And then we would go up to them and be like, hey, by the way, would you mind telling us a bit about your problems? And they were
That's
like,
smart.
It was great. Like honestly, you get like a one-to-one user feedback.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the problem with Toronto. The Toronto rental market was it wasn't the fact that like you had to find a place / there was abundant of there are places where you can find rental listing there, pad mappers, all these places. But people just like, I guess like for people like the hardest problem is like securing a place. Like let's say 2 of you are both bidding for a place. If you say, hey, I have all my papers, this is my background verification, you instantly get like a rental offer versus like the other person basically misses out, even though you have everything similar. So that was our idea, and that was our concept. We came up with a platform. It was called Edge at the time. So I can talk more about it because like RBC ended up actually getting rid of GetDigs because COVID they could not sustain because a lot of people just rental market was really bad. But what the solution that we came up was like, it was Edge. It was like, hey, let's say you're a current renter. You can actually have a social platform. And let's say you're the current rental of a place, and Salvi's like looking for our place right now. You can actually message the person saying, you can say that, hey, I'm moving out in a month. You can message the person, talk to them, being like, hey, by the way, for your place, what do we need? Like, what are the like pre-verification bit? In that platform, there was also an algorithm that me and like my friend who's a data scientist, like we came up with, which is like, it would determine what the accurate bidding price is. So, you will see a rental listing, let's say near Chinatown at U of T. It was, let's say like you're staying with students and it's listed at like $300. I know like another student can come in, go to landlord being like, hey, I'll pay $400. He can outbid me. Or like someone is like landlord posted the rental listing for like $900, but you know, everyone near you is paying like $600-700. So that place is not worth that much money.
Like, I don't know where you're finding those prices today.
Sorry, my bad. These are, I'm talking about like just for example, yeah. It's just like, so it's like, there's like this huge discrepancy between like what's actually posted versus what the place can be rented for. And we had data because like every time you use your RBC card, you actually know anything and everything about a neighborhood. You know about a neighborhood, how much money that neighborhood spends, what people use, how much they pay for their rental stuff, what location it is, how the neighborhood like. So the algorithm would accurately calculate a bidding price, which would allow you to get that edge. So when you go into your, when Naveed says like, hey, I'm moving out in a month, you get your heads up, you get your paper, and you go to your landlord saying that, hey, by the way, I heard that like this renter is moving out. These are all my papers. I have everything. Now this is the price that I'm gonna pay. And it was almost like our algorithm came out to be like almost 98% effective, and we ended up patenting it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Sorry, that was like a long way, but like that was the patent that I had basically from RBC.
That is sick. That would have been very useful for me because when I was moving from Ottawa to Oakville, very similar process, got into multiple bidding wars. I think lost like first 2 or 3 bidding wars. And at one point I was moving in a moving truck with these guys behind me because they helped me move. And I'm still telling them, I don't know if we're going to a storage unit right now or my new place because I don't know if I got it yet. I'm still waiting on the call. It was stressful.
The crazy thing was, who has a bidding war at $3,000? I understand that $1,500. I understand that $2,000, but $3,000.
You'll actually be surprised. So it's like a lot of people, like there's so many reasons a lot of people just don't buy a place. Like it's like it's. And
I'm one of them. Yeah.
It's like, but they would be okay with paying like a higher rent if they don't have to buy the place. Like people just have different investment options, but like that's just one of them. And like in those cases, obviously like the bidding prices like fluctuate a lot more. Like a place is listed for like, let's say like you have a penthouse in downtown by Bay and College, and someone lives there at the penthouse, and right now it's listed for like, let's say $6,000 per month. You know for a fact that you're not going to pay $6,000 for that rental place. So like that's when this algorithm comes to be very effective.
Yeah.
I know like this would have really, really helped a lot of the immigrants, which was like, again, our goal was to make this patent open to public.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, RBC still owns
the patent.
RBC is a joint owner of this patent, so I can't make it open source. Like you still need to get like, even though you'll have like permissions from us, you still need RBC's permission to like actually use that algorithm and whatnot. But there's nothing, again, I mean, if anyone's like, hey, what's under it? I mean, I'm not gonna be like, but hey, you can make this for yourself. Yeah.
No, that's a good point that you bring forth. I think that should be, released publicly, at least for the advantage of all those international students that are coming forth here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think, and people have reached out to me, by the way. Like, I know, like, someone from Toronto reached out to me being like, hey, would you be interested building a product around this? I honestly would be. I would have been super down. I think my biggest thing is, like, my personal project time is so little because I'm like, because you're staring at a computer all day, then you're like, I have so much respect for people who, like, work after their 9 to 5, like, they're 5 to 9 or 5 to 10. I can't. It's just, like, it's so hard. Yeah.
9 to 5, then 5 to 10?
5 to, it's people. I did that. I wanted to go into Y Combinator. I started my own small business with Reco and whatnot. It's insane.
It's a good thing you bring that up because one of the things I want to actually ask you is, like, as someone who it can build pretty much once you get to a certain level as a coder, you can pretty much build up anything that you can think of, right? That's like within the realm of possibilities. So, and also entrepreneurship has been all the rage over the past few years as well. Like a lot of people in tech, the reason I got into tech as well is because of my dream of becoming an entrepreneur. So for you, as someone who kind of has those capabilities, have you considered going into entrepreneurship full time? Or if not, then why not? And why is life better at Microsoft? And I know you get a lot of perks in the Microsoft campus. Those help too.
It's a free food. That's how they pay you.
It's a free food.
Okay, reader, like it's subsidized food actually, not 100% free food. But I think for me, entrepreneurship is like, I have thought about it. I have there was a time when I was really, really hands down pursuing it. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go into Y Combinator. We're gonna get funding from VCs, get this whole thing done. But I think it's a motivation because like I can grind it out. Like, I mean, I have done hackathons. I can do it over 1 weekend, 2 weekends. But consistently doing it for months is crazy. And I've heard Kazi talk about it, how he has his own business and how much he has worked, which is like massive respect because it's just
this
like...
is our podcast.
Oh my God. I heard about it. I was like, it's interesting because it's like, I think when you are spending your 9 to 5 I start work at 8 o'clock. I come back home at 6, basically. So my entire day is spent at Microsoft. I'm staring at a screen all day. After 6 o'clock, I do not want to touch my computer and code. And I mean, I know if I even spend a week, I can like get like a whole application up and running. If I just take 1 week off of work, being like, hey, I just want to take 1 week off of work and I start my own thing, I can do that. It's like not a big deal. Or I can also pay someone in Turkey, for example. Yeah. Or in...
Hold up, Turkey does... They outsource that too?
Hair
and coding?
I have done both. I have done research on both.
What good is Canada for? That's news to me.
But you can definitely outsource any of these. Like, and you can go to Turkey, you can go to like Middle East, like anywhere. I can pay money for someone to build the idea. It's just like maintaining it is so hard because it's just like at that time. And also, you need a viable business. You need to make sure what does the user like. That's like the biggest thing. It's like when you're coming with a business, everything has a solution. Like I would say 99% of the things has a solution. And I talked to my dad about this too. But
you and your dad are really close.
we do talk about it. I was like, the other day I was talking to him. I was like, Dad, like I mean, I think I can build pretty much. All websites have the same backend. Like you don't and any UI and stuff. You can just. It's fine. Again, it's not like, oh, it's impossible for me to build it. I can build it. It's just that I also don't have ideas. I'm like a dumbass. Yeah. Like I just want to do my 9 to 5. I love AI. His response was like, you need to find someone who does not have a job, who is out of money, and really needs to like. He's like on the like mentality basically. You need to have like someone with like a hustling mentality because I was like. Yeah, I don't think I'm hungry. Like, I think he literally said the word, you need to be hungry to be in this game. And I'm like, I don't think I'm hungry enough. But yeah, I think that's where I'm at. I really like my job, what I do. So I think, and yeah, I feel like I am giving my brain to Microsoft and they are benefiting from it. But also at the same time, I also like the stability of it, which for me, it's like, it helps my parents. I get to help my parent. Yep. I get to work from anywhere. I'm sure like entrepreneurship would have done the same. I get to spend time with my younger brother. Like I come back every couple of months and like I see him growing up and it's just, I like after my 8 to 6, I go play soccer and come back home. I play FIFA with my brother. Like, we are in 2 different codes, but I'm grinding Ultimate Team and rage quitting every once in a while. So I get to have that like family side of me. Like, and I think if I went into entrepreneurship, it would definitely suffer. And right now I really, really value that, like that bond bit. Like I really miss my family basically. I think it's
absolutely. Like, I think that's a great great value to have as well. I think, and that was gonna be my point, because I think a lot of people glorify entrepreneurship as like this get rich quick scheme kind of, right? Yeah. But you're not gonna get rich quick, that's for sure. Yeah. It takes a lot of work, and a lot of times even working at big companies, you get just as rich and be just as successful. Yeah. And also a lot of times I feel like let's say for example in Microsoft, you're basically in a company that's gonna almost defining our next decade in technology. right? Especially with this partnership with OpenAI. That's not a bad place to be. That's an amazing place to be in. That's an amazing technology to work on.
Right.
Almost shaping, being a part of the solution for like the next, whatever the next innovation is that's coming up.
Right. I'm definitely very grateful. I think a lot of this like I'm extremely grateful. I think I like alhamdulillah, like I don't say this enough. I feel like I got lucky at multiple stages of my life, and I think I say this with like all honesty. I think a lot of like domino pieces kind of like fell in the right place for me to be where I'm at. I don't take that lightly at all. I know if I can lose my job tomorrow, and Microsoft can't lay me off and being like, hey, we don't need you. We have all these like other 90 people who can like do your job. But I will think about what comes after, but also at the same time, I also think that I've been in the industry long enough that I can go back and like, I can join something else. I think at this point, especially with my life, I can see my parents growing older, and if I go into entrepreneurship, I know for a fact that like I'm not going to be able to like spend a lot of time with them. I'm not going to be able to like build the interpersonal bonds. Like for example, like our friendship, even like I won't be able to like even come back to Toronto. And things like that. So I really, really value that. Yeah.
You know what I think is truly underrated in today's day and age? A good old 9 to 5.
It's so true.
Seriously. Entrepreneurship is everywhere. Everybody talks about starting their own business, content creators, influencers, everything at your own discretion. But a good old 9 to 5, it's underrated for all those reasons that you just mentioned. And I think as our generation, ages and we kind of see our parents go through that cycle of life, we're going to realize that too.
100%.
And it's going to come back.
For sure. And also, like, I don't like growing up, I definitely like mental health and like a lot of these other topics were not a big like points for discussion. And I think when you like the stress basically gets to you, and you need to have that. I think my dad hit it right off. He's like, you need to be hungry. Like if you aren't hungry enough, it's just like, you're setting yourself up for failure. And I that's why I have so much respect for like people who are entrepreneurs. Like, they are hungry. They're going out there. They're people who are successful. I just think that like, that wouldn't be me, basically. I
think for our parents, it's also a bit different because they moved from a whole different country to come here. They had to be hungry. They had to be hungry to succeed with no resources. For a lot of them, they came here with no resources, no network, no nothing, and they had to build a whole life. And you need a lot of hunger to make that happen. But they also made that happen so that we can also enjoy kind of the comforts of life and also give it back to them when it's their turn.
100%. I mean, you guys probably heard the same story as I did, how my dad would come in with $2 in his pocket and then somehow make that. I'm kidding. every brown uncle comes in with like $2. And how that. $2, bro. Yeah, $2. Sorry, not even $2. Yeah. And then, it keeps on like getting into this like, But yeah, I at some point I did do like the pro versus con. I'm like, this is too much. There's no way.
But you know what? I'll tell you one thing. I do think you can have a different type of hunger in corporate.
Growing up, like going up the chain.
Yeah, it's still hunger.
That's fair. That is,
Hunger by definition is hard work.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I do wanna say like I think there's the other bit which is like I really enjoy the work that I do. I don't know if my mentality would have been the same if I hated my job. And I did. I worked for Amazon for 8 months. Like I started Microsoft. I went to Amazon for 8 months. Yeah. And then I boomerang
came back.
They gave me a good offer and I was like, I'm not gonna, like I was on call, like straight up. I was on call 24/7 for 8 months.
On call is ridiculous.
Awful. Yeah. Like you're literally like, it's just anything breaks. Like I was like, they hired me and I was the one person in the team. And then they were like, hey, we're going to grow the team. They never grew the team. So whenever things would go south, it was always me because my service was at the entrance of everything. And I would be woken up at like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And it's just like, just for me to be like, hey, that's not my problem. Like pass to someone else.
And those are not my operating business hours.
Well, when you're on call 24/7. So it's like, and the alarm is crazy. Like it goes like,
Did you have Opgenie? Is that the one you guys use?
I think Amazon had its like own pager.
One? Yeah. Oh man, I have a pager from I think Atlassian, whatever the company is.
Yeah.
They're on Opsgenie. Basically, the same guys who own Jira.
Oh,
That sound
yeah.
gives me PTSD.
Yeah, it's
oh
a
my God.
bizarre, like as if like the world is ending.
Yeah.
On your phone, you can't even if you put your phone on silent, it doesn't stop.
So it's worse than Alexa.
Oh, it's way worse. It's like, oh my God, it's really bad. And if you don't pick it up it calls you once. Let's say you ignore it. It calls you again in the next 10 minutes. You ignore it. If you ignore it twice, it's gonna wake up your manager.
Yeah.
So imagine waking up and then your manager doesn't pick up. It goes to his manager, then his manager, and so it goes all the way up to the CEO. And then
Imagine you wake up the CEO at some point.
yeah, you're screwed basically. At that point, you're just like
I was just gonna ask you. With you, he needs like a 5-alarm blaze to come on through. He doesn't wake up.
No, trust me. That sound at certain point, it gives you so much PTSD.
Yeah.
You're gonna wake up.
Yeah.
There's no way you're not waking up.
It's bad. Like, I mean, at that time I was like really considering. I was like, yeah, this is not for me. I mean, why am I wasting my brain power for this? Like,
Yeah, entrepreneurship doesn't sound so bad.
yeah. No, I was like, yeah. I mean, I'm working 24/7. I might as well just like do it for myself rather than someone. Yeah.
But look, no, you've talked about all the successes and your hard work and everything up until now, right? Diverse experience, but along the way, were there quote unquote any challenges that you faced?
Oh, when did I not face challenges? Every day waking up is a big challenge.
What was your biggest challenge that you had to overcome?
I think it really varies at different stages. Moving to the States was obviously a big challenge. I like moved during COVID, like right when COVID started, figuring things out by myself. My parents, like, and I loved them to death, but like they were like, hey, like we want to help you move to the States, like let us help you. I was like, no, I want to figure this stage of my life by myself. I didn't realize like it would be that bad. I mean, it was the States, but still, I was like, I got this. That was really hard. I think going through university itself was like really big. I think also like when we moved to Canada, like I think it's like the story of every immigrant. And Salvi and I, we were talking about it, but like you basically go through like a straight up, like a very different lifestyle than you were in. My dad was in the military, so and when we were in Bangladesh, I guess like we used to live in these like
Gated communities.
Yeah. And it's like it was a bubble,
and even a lot more affluent than like even the surrounding neighborhoods.
right? Yeah. And you have your drivers that are picking you up, and you have people who are like coming home and cleaning your house. So it's like, and I sound very like, I don't know what's the word, like pretentious. Is that the word? But you have all these like people who are coming and cleaning your house, like driving you and everything. And it's a great lifestyle to be in. But as a kid, when you grow up like that, and you're not super old, like you just finished elementary school and middle school per se, and like you're coming here, and you come into a life where it's like you literally have to do anything. Your parents, you see your dad who worked as a who was an officer, who was driven around. He's working as a security guard, even though he has 2 masters. Your mom's working at a factory, even though she has a full master's. You're taking care of your younger brother. My younger brother was in grade 1 when we moved here, and then he used to cook his own rice, by the way, in grade 1 because no one could look after him, and I was like cooking parathas for him in the morning because someone had to like.
You know how to cook parathas?
Instant frozen ones.
Admirable.
And now I know how to cook, actually. The way to cook.
Good.
It's going on your phone, calling Uber Eats.
I thought he was going to bring out ChatGPT.
Well, you can do that, but...
Yeah. Still got to put in the work. They're not at that stage yet.
Oh my God. But, that's like a very... That itself was like a very, I think, life awakening call. You get woken up and you're like, hey, like you have to figure your life out for yourself. And that was, I think, out of all the challenges that we have gone through, that stage of our lives, like all of our lives were like really crucial, and like we were all together. And I don't know how my dad did it, how my mom did it. Like if at their age, if I had to do it for my kids who would like go to a different school, I would not be able to do that. I'm so sorry. I'm like, yeah, man, like my kids, your future is on your hand, not me. Yeah.
No, I think we all say that, like that we wouldn't be able to do it, right? Obviously, we just say that because we may not be able to go through it, but it's that almost every parent of that generation did it. Like the success rate was 99%.
Yeah, yeah. And they were insane, and like they worked hard, and obviously for me it was like coming out of that bubble. It's like, oh, I have to go walk and take the bus, and if I miss my bus, the next bus doesn't come in 30 minutes, and I gotta walk like half an hour. That's crazy. It's like, where's my driver? Obviously, I'm like, but it's just, these are like life awakening calls. And like, if your parents aren't making money because Canada didn't value your parents as education, like, they weren't valuing other people's education. So now you see your parents working at factories or security guards, and like that hit you. They're like, okay, I got to do something. Like, I can't live this life. I got to take control of it. And I think that was like a big motivator for me, if anything. And I think that's when you met me. Like, I think you met me at that stage of my life, because it was like when we met, me and Salvi met, like we went to this like gathering of like ex-military officers, and in that gathering, it was like basically Salvi and I were talking, and it's just, I was like, oh, this is so sad. Like, we didn't even have a ride to come here, and like we had to, like, I think we had to ask someone who knew someone else who was nice enough to give us a ride there, because it was in the middle of like it was somewhere in like one.
It was actually near our old place now in Birchmount. Near Birchmount.
Oh, okay, that's okay. I was like, I did not even know the roads at that time.
I remember where it was because it was near our old place.
Yeah, sorry. Like, I'm talking a lot about this, but it's just like these realization. I think that was that time was like, it was really tough for me, but I think it was I needed it. I really, really needed it. I would not have turned out the person I am if I didn't go through it.
And you know what that sounds like to me? Hunger.
That was hunger. That was hunger. Yeah.
I think we don't explore like the whole immigrant struggle and immigrant story enough on this pod. Maybe we should do that more, because it is we've all gone through it.
Yeah.
And you kind of articulated it really well, which is a lot of our motivator is that, like, seeing our parents struggle.
Yeah.
Seeing them come from a life that they could have had to this life.
Right.
And then a lot of times struggle to achieve similar kind of lifestyle here. And you as a kid want to do everything in your power to give them that back, which they maybe sacrificed coming here, whether it's for us, for whatever other reason. And as a kid, it's very hard to see that, especially I think if you come around a certain age where you're able to understand these things, but you're also not old enough to do anything about it. It plays such a huge motivator in everything else you do in your life.
100%. And it was such like a big life awakening call. I remember in grade 12, actually, this is like, I always like say this. It was like one of my humble brags was like, I was driving and my dad was like, yeah, you have to be more careful. You have to worry about your bills and stuff. Like, he was teaching me how to use a credit card. I was like, I'm going to have a job one day where I will not need to worry about my bills. Like, they're going to pay by themselves. But I said that to my dad. I still pay my bills. I still worry about my bills. My phone bill is still like biggest worry, but still not there yet. But I think it's just like it was again, things like that. That was like those are the struggles that I think motivated me a lot. And that was like a big struggle for me, for sure.
Wow. Yeah. So thanks for sharing that. Now, we don't want to keep you for much longer. You've been here for way longer than you even we even asked you to, and we're very grateful. So I think last question, unless you have anything else.
No.
So last question from my end. For anyone else who wants to either get into software engineering, get into Microsoft, one thing we want to do on this podcast is obviously also be a resource to people. So what advice would you give kids who are maybe in high school right now, or even going through undergrad, maybe in a similar field? Right. What advice would you give them? How would you say they grow their hunger, maybe, or the floor is yours.
Yeah,
or the mic is yours.
I think the biggest thing is like two things. One is like staying humble. Like, staying humble is like you can always do more. Like, everyone can do more. I say this because I mean, again, I just talked about how after 9 to 5 you need to take a break, but I think when you're in high school, especially in Canada. It's a lot of and I say this, and a lot of kids might be going through like so many different stages, but if you're like a kid like me, you have very loving parents, you have a loving family, you're going to school, you have a roof over your head, you're getting meals 5 times a day, or I don't know how many meals I have.
I'm trying to do OMAD, bro. 1 meal a day there.
Oh my god. But if you're getting meals at least 3
Yeah.
times a day, you're very lucky. You're extremely lucky. You can do more. You have so much time and you can learn more. Reach out to people, people who are, there are a lot of people who would be more than willing to talk about their experience. So I think an experience is it's so crucial. So learn about other people and staying humble. I tutored a lot of kids, and I think one of the things that I saw that was a big downfall for a very group of very smart kids was they were like, hey, I know everything and I can do everything, and that they don't follow through, and they're extremely smart. I know they can, but it's just they don't follow through. I think for high school kids right now, trying to get into the industry, I think that's a big motivator. It's you don't have to get into software. There are other fields that pay way more. There are other fields that are more successful and whatnot. But pick a field / pick a lane that you're kind of interested in, because you have to do that. Your world can't be an oyster anymore. It has to be it has to be narrowed down, and stay motivated. I think that's and staying humble, especially staying humble, saying that I want to ask questions. I want to know other people. This kid in my class who might not be doing as good as I am, they still know things that I don't. And it's just that you have to accept that. And when you, I guess I think this I keep on bringing my dad. He's gonna get to me. He's actually getting to my head. I'm
make sure your dad listens to this episode. I'll make sure. I'll send it to him.
It's so because he always gives this example. It's I think he says that the smartest man in the room is the smartest man is the man / the most successful man in the room is the man who knows that he doesn't know anything, and he knows that everyone in that room knows something about some topic more than him, and he can learn more. And you can always learn more. I think that's staying that mentality. For people in the industry, people who have switched to tech, I think if you are looking to switch, it's a great industry to be in. If you are not looking to switch, it's also okay. You don't have to be in tech. I think the most thing is don't give up. I think there are so many examples. My example is a very basic example. I went to university, did computer engineering, went to software. There are tons of people that I know who have at Microsoft, my own manager. I will make sure she watches this too, by the way. Shout out to my manager. But she was doing her PhD at the age of 30. She dropped out of her PhD program, joined Microsoft, became a manager in less than 5 years, 5 to 6 years.
That is awesome.
So it is extremely doable. There are things that you can do. So don't give up. I think more so just find your lane. I think finding your lane and staying humble. I cannot stress this enough. It's just you have to I guess that's where the hunger thing comes in too. But I guess you have to just find your lane. Yeah, to be hungry. Maybe I'm lost. I need to find my lane.
I think you're doing good. You're in your lane perfectly. Thanks for that advice. And I think what you said is extremely true. If you think you're the smartest person in the room, you probably aren't the smartest person in the room. You can only be smart if you surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. And you also get to learn a lot from them, which is why I have Mohaimen on this podcast.
I learned, I think everyone has value. It's just because someone isn't smart in the aspect that I choose them not to be smart with. For example, I'm if I'm in class and see a smart kid, I'm oh, he's smarter than me. That's not necessarily true. I am also probably better at him in some aspect in his life, and he can benefit for sure. It's just that I don't have the vision to see it, or / the smart person or / the person that I think who's smarter than me is hiding his weakness so well that I don't see it. And you don't need to,
or even they themselves don't see it.
Right.
A lot of times, people need to grow up a lot. You heard about our co-host Kazi. He's an amazingly good talker, and I think it took him a while to understand that he can use that as a strength, whatever he's doing. And that's also intelligence, smart, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, for sure. So again, just staying humble, I guess.
Absolutely. All right, thanks for that. Do you have anything else?
No, I'm good. Now we're in 23. That's amazing.
Yeah, we went way longer than we expected. Just talking to you was a lot of fun.
No, because I kept blabbing. That's right.
No, man, we actually really enjoyed having you on. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking to us.
You know what? I do have one thing to say. It was great to talk about AI with an AI expert.
Okay, I sort of put this out of the cameras. I'm not an AI expert, but for sure.
A
And
subject matter expert. There you go.
SME
At least someone who was much closer to Sam Altman than we were. Could have been.
What is it, building 150? Or that's Satya?
that's not. It's not. Yeah, like or maybe another building.
Don't
Undisclosed
put that out
locations.
there. I'll just bleep that out.
Undisclosed locations. I'm kidding.
Somewhere
Somewhere in the campus, but.
somewhere. Yeah.
If you guys, thanks for having me. If you guys if you ever want to tour any of the campuses, just let me know. I mean, there's Microsoft in Toronto, but it's just like 2 or 3 floors.
No, I'm coming down to Seattle. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'll show you guys there on the campus and whatnot.
Are we allowed the food, or is it just for employees?
Yeah, no, everyone's
perfect.
all the food. Yeah, please.
All 34 cafeterias?
All 34
Do they have
cafeterias.
halal options?
Sold.
They have halal options for sure.
Sold.
They actually will make. Oh, by the way, there's a 3-course meal place. It's like a
Ooh.
pretty thriller. So you can get 3-course meal from a Michelin star place for
God damn.
$18.
Yeah. $18.
$18.
From a
I can't even
Michelin
get a
place.
shawarma plate for $18 anymore.
But we were ordering a paratha roll for $50 today. What are you?
That is crazy. You get a three ingredients.ai or something. It's like I will send the website, but it's like ingredients. Yeah, that's a cafe at Microsoft.
Oh, that is awesome. You guys are living. I can see why you don't want to go into entrepreneurship. Just stay with Microsoft.
That's how they get you. I'm kidding, but yeah, if you guys, thank you for having me. I'm so grateful. I got to be here. So
Absolutely. All right, and with that, we are closing off. Thank you, Naveed, aka Nosy Nav,
Thank you.
aka Slim Navy, for tuning in. You still have me, Salvi, and tuning out for today.
thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, we out.